just can't take no more games.
You on that one, my man.
Okay, Monday edition of the After Show. Got Week of Justice with you a week over here on the East Coast.
And justice on the west coast of the contiguous United States, because our influence doesn't just stop at the Oregon coastline. No, it goes past Hawaii and even beyond there. But I'm stuck here just to the Pacific Ocean. But it's Metaphor Monday, and this is the day we call things what they are. We really, really try not to use like or as in a simile. It's a metaphor that we're achieving today, and indeed, we will. As soon as we find out how Wink is doing on the East Coast. How you doing, Wink?
Not bad, not bad. It is 45 degrees and raining out there, so it's like a spring day here, at least. A little on the overcast side. Obviously, it's raining, but not bad. We'll take it. I'll take 45 every day this time of year. Not bad at all. Mind to get in the chat. Just go to netrootsradio.com. Scroll down the bottom of the page, and on the right-hand side of the bottom of the page, there is a link to the chat. So click that and join us there.
And, of course, the donate contribute button is to the leftish buttons. Buttons.
Yeah. Yes.
Is to the leftish of the chat room. Link there. And thank you for your generosity. We are still in, I'll have to say, fun driving mode. Yep, it's that time where we need to make sure our equipment is backed up and software is installed, and thank you for helping us pay the bills.
Yes,
we're going to need a smidgen more now, and we appreciate your help on that, truly. Yep. Well, Wink, here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, it is currently 40 degrees. Had been raining. It looks like the sun is peeking through, though we are expected to get occasional showers throughout the day. Tomorrow, a high of 58. And then tomorrow we're supposed to be in the mid-60s, only partly cloudy. And then rain for a few days, then maybe sun, then rain for a few days. It's just like Oregon in the spring.
Yeah. Yep.
As I remembered it when I was but a child.
There you go. Yep.
And
they're in the Final Four, too. They're in the Final Four.
Oh, yeah. You want to know about that. Boy. And I must confess, I mean, if you want to get onto that real quick, I have to confess, I haven't really followed the college game very much until, it sounds so cliched, but until the Sweet 16.
There you go.
Then I started, kind of reading about it. I didn't watch every game, but, I started following locals and things like that.
It's all cool. Yeah, it's all
good. But for the, certainly by the, the Final Eight, then I started hearing Oregon's not playing too bad.
Right.
And they play a kind of offense that I really like, one that is generated by a smothering defense. That's my favorite kind of game.
Yep.
Because it moves, it's fluid. It seems like it is just spontaneous in terms of, the offensive output off of the defense. Right. But there's a tremendous amount of strategy and playmaking, coaching. I mean, those aren't just Those aren't just bum rushes to the basket after a steal. Those are set up plays.
Yes,
and that's the kind of game I always love to play and try to affect even in our weekend games, after I stop being a jock. Well, you can't really stop being a jock. So you go out and, hurt yourself on concrete or actually we would go to the Y.
Right.
And play on a wooden floor. So that, but they were pretty rigorous full court games. And that kind of game that Oregon is playing, I really appreciate. And they took down some powerhouses.
Yeah.
I would say maybe not. And I have to admit, I confess, I haven't been following the college basketball game very much this season until the championship part. And from what I gather, Oregon wasn't really thought very highly of, as most West Coast teams are, outside of maybe UCLA,
right,
or Gonzaga. Now,
Right. Gonzaga, yeah.
remember when we were? It doesn't seem that very long ago. Gonzaga was like the outlier.
Oh, heck
Who's
yeah.
Gonzaga? Can you don't even know how to say it? Now
Right.
they're like seeded number one every year.
Yeah.
And they're just a tiny little school.
Yep.
Okay. Well, these. Oh, of course it was the weekend, and all sorts of stuff happened over the weekend. I mean, we got Roger Stone running. Oh yeah, I'll testify. Manafort said, "Oh yeah, I'll testify." Of course, after he got a crisis PR firm to go for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you gotta think about. Okay, he said he's going to testify after he got the crisis PR firm behind him. And you know, I suppose it's wrong of me just to stereotypically state that, you know, if you get a crisis PR firm, usually means you're guilty. And you're trying to, you know, mold the PR. Why else?
Right. Right.
Hence the term lawyering up.
Yes.
It's kind of an ancillary to that, to the rarefied part of the justice system that, Wink, you and I are never going to be a part of.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, so, but where he's at, that's the ancillary to lawyering up. Okay. And it doesn't look good. But, yeah, they're all running to testify. And then it turns out that Flynn, now, we haven't actually heard corroboration from the Justice Department or the FBI. But it looks like he may have turned, and he is now an FBI witness. Of
Wow.
course, he would have been the most to lose criminally in terms of treason charges, shall we say.
Right.
Let alone RICO violations. And I think that may be the tact that will be used. RICO statutes, mob statutes, because we're dealing. See, it's kind of hard for maybe even our own justice system to wrap its head around the idea that a whole government could be run by Russian mobsters, right?
Right.
In the construct of a mob operation. And then add on government fiat, and then you got what you got, like kleptocracy or, you know, whatever it is, right? Certainly authoritarian and certainly just like a mob operation. So I think it's hard for our justice system to wrap its head around the idea of a nation state being that way. Even though when they're brown, little yellow, or little brown and yellow people, you know, scampering around, say, in Southeast Asia, you know, it's okay to do it then, right?
Yeah.
But, so Flynn may have turned. And then it turns out James Woolsey, Wink, who I have to say, maybe accept some of his credibility. He initially came on to the Trump transition team and then abruptly left. And a lot of people speculated why that was so. Why that was so is because Flynn had set up a meeting with Turkish representatives of Erdogan to talk about illegally kidnapping a U.S. citizen who has been blamed by Erdogan as the instigator, the cause of all the unrest in Turkey right now. All of the criticism directed towards Erdogan. Because, you know, in his mind, he's a benevolent ruler, you know, and to everybody else, he's a brutal dictator.
Right.
Right. And he's blaming this dissident who lives in Pennsylvania, who is a U.S. citizen, of Turkish descent, but a U.S. citizen. Woolsey and others were invited by Flynn to sit down to talk about how they would rendition this guy illegally out of the country and take him to his just desserts in Turkey. And Woolsey walked out of the meeting. Which begs the question, why are we only hearing about this now? Because this happened in January, right? And I don't know whether it was before or after the inauguration, which makes it even curiouser and curiouser. But regardless, Woolsey walked out. You'll never guess who else was at that meeting, Wink. Guess. Come on, guess. That's right, Nunez. The chairman of the Intelligence Committee was in on that meeting, too.
He was at the meeting, yeah.
Which probably answers the question of why, when he was on an Uber car with his staff coming from dinner back to more work at the office, he got a phone call, according to staff members, his staffers. He abruptly got out of the Uber, didn't tell any of his crew where he was. The next time they saw him, he was giving press conferences about stuff that he had just found out, and he had to tell the president. So what did he find out? Woolsey's going to come forward and say, I was in a meeting where Flynn was essentially violating U.S. law with the complicit okay of the yet to be or is now the president of the United States. Wink, it's another week. I mean, look, everybody says it would be worse with Pence. Psychologically, I don't think so. Because Pence would do it in this quiet, pious little way, you know.
Right.
It'd be just as brutal. We'd be destroyed.
Oh yeah, yep.
You know,
No doubt.
but it would be pious. You know, he'd come by and put his hand on our forehead and says, "Oh, with the grace of God, go thee," and then our heads will be lopped off.
Yeah.
You know, at least with Trump, it's just like constant, just anguish and vitriol, and you just can't stand the guy. At least with Pence, you'd go, "Oh, well, he's forgiving me for my transgressions." You know,
Exactly,
at least you
yeah.
go out thinking, well, you know, for me, that's better.
Yeah, there you go.
Going out and just complete cynical outrage, that I don't know. I don't know if I want to have that as my eternal memory. Oh, wake. Well, that's a whole metaphysical question that we got to save for another day of the
There
week.
you go.
Because these are the issues that we are attending to today. Team Trump rolls out its plan to kill climate action while making up facts that will ruin your children's lives and your grandkids, too. Ivanka Trump is set to attend a women's empowerment summit in Berlin next month. Well, no. She was born into, a rich family. You can't get more empowered than that, I guess. And motivational speaker Tony Robbins slams Trump for his fake alpha identity. I like Tony Robbins. I actually met him. He's I used to be very cynical about the self-help industry, which
Right.
I got to say Tony Robbins in some ways might have. He didn't really invent, because it's always kind of been around. I mean, you might even say a tent revival back in the 30s through the 50s, the traveling tent revivals that Billy Graham came out of. In a way, those were motivational type things. But I'm talking about directing towards business and, giving pep talks to management. I don't know. It's motivational speaking, self-help, right? And he's written many books. So I always had a cynical approach to the guy. But on a personal level, he's very egalitarian. He's very generous. Lives by a principle that is not Randian. Believes in the idea of what we used to call the new biology, that organisms that are beneficent to each other tend to survive more than those that are in conflict. Because the ones in the conflict, they kill each other, right? And then you get some sort of weird mutation.
Yep.
But beneficent organisms that live in symbiosis tend to survive in a much, grander way. And so I like that approach. So, I had my misgivings with Tony Robbins early, because that was around the time of, the Dianetics seminars and the Werner Erhard seminars, which I did attend. Not the Dianetics. I had some college mates that sort of got recruited when Scientology was really first really taking off, and they had gotten, I believe, the facility near the Queen of Angels Hospital, if it wasn't actually the Queen of Angels Hospital. And I remember going to visit these guys, and we would do this kind of stuff in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that, drive out there. And so we're on this bluff looking down on the parking lot of this facility that the Scientologists had purchased. And there's like about 50 people in these like uniforms marching up and down in formation, Wink. And it was the weirdest thing. I thought, is this boot camp? What the hell? And so they were in the organization for a period of time, and then celebrities started being recruited. And the way that construct in Scientology was set up is that you started off in the kitchen, and then you kind of worked your way up and got clear, and you were put on these e-meters to gauge how clear you were, you know. But for some reason, celebrities had, bypassed that whole process, and that offended my friends who actually came from rich families, thought they were entitled, and why would they have to work in the kitchen to work their way up, that kind of thing. So there was that. But long story short, I kind of assigned Tony Robbins to that mindset of the time. It just seemed cynical and predatory, and but knowing him honest, we're not friends. I'm just saying that I've met him in a non-professional, much more relaxed social setting. And 6'8", buddy, he's big.
Yeah, he's tall.
He's a big guy.
Yep.
No, he fills a room. He commands a room. It's there's few people I've actually felt charisma around. You feel it around Tony Robbins, and I got to tell you, you feel it around Obama.
Yep.
When Obama would come to San Francisco, I never felt this way with rock stars or anything, but when he drove by, you felt this energy. It was the weirdest thing, Wink. And then if you were in a room with him, it's the same. So
he's got
Bobby Kennedy. I was in a room with Bobby Kennedy giving a speech when I was a kid with my dad. That was another, I don't know, you just were drawn to the cadence of the speech.
Right.
In a similar way that that Martin Luther King had a cadence to a speech, that you were just drawn in. You felt it and understood it, spiritually, intellectually, the whole thing. Bobby Kennedy had that kind of thing. He commanded a room. It was a different way, a much more maybe quiet way, but just there was a light there. And so very few. And Robbins actually had that. Well, okay. So for the last half, enough of that. Boy, I'm just going on, aren't I? It's Monday, Wink.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to report that Trump's budget of more guns and less butter is great news for middlemen of military hardware. And why wouldn't it be? And Trump is really like Andrew Jackson in one important and largely ignored way. All that, plus the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Co's community calendar and more on the after show with that ever so fine fellow over there on the East Coast. And he is, Wink, I feel sorry for you. You work a lot for this station. Thank you. And his name is Wink.
No problem.
And this guy all the way back over here on the West Coast, and my name is Justice. And we do this on the after show 5 days a week for an hour-ish. In this particular, specific, and peculiar tear on the fabric of space-time, because who loves you, baby?
We all work hard here at netrootsradio.com.
No, I was just thinking, I mean, you facilitate and produce, the Roundtable Roundhouse Power Hour. You do both of your shows, Sunday and Wednesday. You do the after show. Plus, you got to do all the office manager stuff. You got to actually make sure the bills are paid. You put the pods together.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, man.
Few different hats.
I mean, the being kind of like a glorified engineer on my part. I mean, there's a bit of task involved in what I do too. But I was just assessing. I mean, my God, thank you. Thank you for producing all these shows. If we ever do get to the point where we get to join, the union. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to get producer pay, buddy, for a bunch of stuff.
There you go.
All right. Trump team making up facts. Boy, isn't that a shock? This is by Joe Rome out of Think Progress. Trump will sign an executive order tomorrow, Tuesday, to start the effort to kill Obama's Clean Power Plan standards, which are aimed at cutting carbon pollution from electricity plants. Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Scott Pruitt said yesterday on ABC's This Week. Pruitt's long interview was filled with false and misleading statements about domestic climate action and the Paris climate deal. For instance, falsehood. The executive order will address the past administration efforts to kill jobs throughout the country. Remember when Obama came into office and we were in this economic calamity that hadn't been, the severity of which had never been experienced since before the great crash of 29.
Right.
All right. Right. And he came in and said, my first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I kill jobs. But in their heads, what they're thinking is that he didn't come out and say it. He devised this weird thing about how he's going to clean up the air. But really, he's about killing jobs. Where do these people come up with this stuff? I know exactly where they come up with it. Well, the reality is, contrary to popular myth, regulations such as clean air standards do not have a net negative impact on job growth. Instead, in fact, studies have found that regulations like the Clean Power Plan actually spur innovation and competitiveness, create jobs, and save lives. But these are the people who are going to, out of your healthcare plan, Wink, you know what wasn't covered? Doctor visits, hospital visits, emergency care. Those are, the things that you would expect on healthcare.
Right. Exactly.
Your baby has a debilitating disease and could die in 2 weeks. Too bad. Die, baby, die.
Yep.
Right? Do they care about saving lives? Not when it gets in the way of money.
Right. Exactly. Money comes first, always.
How else can you justify incinerating 11 employees on the Macondo well head? We never hear about those people, do we, Wink?
No.
You know what we do hear about is the economic impact on the region, though, in the billions.
There you go. Yeah.
But we don't hear about the 11 lives that were incinerated because of bad safety practices.
Right.
The recent two-term presidents who embraced clean air standards, and that would be Obama and Clinton, created vastly more jobs than anti-regulation presidents like Reagan and George W. Bush. Businesses have added jobs at nearly 2.5 times faster rate under Democrats than under Republicans on average, the U.S. Congress Joint Economic Committee reported in June. But if that's a government entity that made that announcement, wouldn't that by its face be false, Wink? Because government doesn't work.
Right.
And the only way that it would seem to work is if you have these entities that put out these, facts. They're not facts, these statistics. It's fake news. You can't trust these government entities. Do you see how insidious this programming has taken place? How many decades have we been hearing from the Republicans that government doesn't work? And now they're attacking the very institutions that just simply add up 2 plus 2. And we're at the point where we're thinking, well, if that group said 2 plus 2 equals 4, is it really 2 plus 2 equals 4? I mean, it's the craziest thing, Wink. Falsehood. Will it bring back coal jobs? I think absolutely it will, Pruitt told Stephanopoulos. Reality. Pruitt may think it will, but it won't. As Bloomberg New Energy Finance experts explain, whatever President Trump may say, and I hate using that term, I have to take out the president, put a line through that. Whatever Trump may say, U.S. coal's main problem has been cheap natural gas and renewable power, not a politically driven war on coal. Remember how they all, they always complain, they being the Republicans and the conservatives and libertarians and the Freedom Caucus.
Right.
It's not government's job to pick winners and losers. Well, why are they picking a loser to try to be a winner? The coal is losing in the marketplace. Not because of any government intrusion. They're running out. And the only reason, I got to tell you, the only reason that natural gas is taken over is because they're pulverizing rock and getting microscopic bubbles of gas out of rock.
Right. Exactly right. Yep.
I think we got to go to the renewable energy part, like power from the sun. Jesus. Or something.
Makes
water,
too much sense.
wind. It makes too much sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I do have to say that because of the depletion of coal, what did it innovate? The ability to pulverize rock and get microscopic bubbles of gas out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, my God, who can't see that? So if we run out of the ability to pulverize rock, all the gas bubbles and pulverized rock are gone. Then they start thinking, well, maybe we can make storage systems for the energy that we're getting from wind, wave, and sun. And if we're going to keep the grid system, how do we distribute it without it losing its energy down the line?
Right.
And that spurs innovation, right?
Yes.
The only problem is that, well, the next one, everybody marveled at the combustion engine because it meant that we weren't a horse-driven economy anymore, literally.
Right.
And people stopped dying of diphtheria because of horse poop in the street.
Right.
Right. But then we started dying of lung cancer because of air pollution.
Yeah.
So I just wonder what will be the next great innovation that we just, it's good now, but we don't foresee what it'll do in the future.
Yeah.
That's why I like the idea of like wind and solar. It seems relatively benign.
Boy, it's pretty clean, I'd say. Yeah.
So, and it wasn't Obama's clean air policies that caused coal jobs to diminish, but So the article does go on, and it cites falsehood after falsehood that Pruitt had specified in his long interview with Stephanopoulos, I have to say. And it is quite comprehensive in its takedown, so I would suggest going to the link on my show notes. Okay, Women's Empowerment Summit. Apparently Ivanka and Merkel had a much better get-together than Donald. Donald handed Merkel, according to reports now, of course, handed Merkel a bill invoice for $300 billion to pay for NATO he thinks Germany owes.
Yeah, I like that, yeah.
But, of course, in the Trump style of negotiating, he owes over $300 million to Deutsche Bank. So what would happen in a Trumpian mind? Well, I'm just going to counter with a 300 billion euro bill. You say I owe you 300 million, I'm going to tell you that you owe me 300 billion. And converted in US dollars, that'll be 370 billion. Thank you very much. You got until, I don't know, April 15th.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the Trumpian way of negotiating, isn't it? I owe money, and I'm just going to, make it 300, put a B on it. Unbelievable. This story is by Shisha Ghosh out of the International Business Times. Ivanka Trump will visit Germany late next month to attend a Women's Empowerment Summit in Berlin. Senior administrative officials told the AP Saturday the trip will mark Ivanka Trump's first visit abroad following her father's election as the president of the United States. Fortunately, in this article, they don't capitalize the P on president. Thank you. German Chancellor Angela Merkel invited the first daughter to the W20 summit during her recent visit to Washington, D.C. A senior White House official told the AP on the condition of anonymity because they're stabbing each other in the back right and left over there, Wake. My God, I wouldn't want to be in. I've heard that people have taken to drinking since the healthcare debacle, and people are dumping cash and data on their phones. They're destroying their batteries on their phones because they don't want to be leaving a trail.
Right.
Okay, Merkel had spent some time with the first daughter during her visit to the White House. Ivanka also set up a gathering for German and American business leaders to discuss vocational training on the request of German officials. I don't know, they kind of like the Trumps over there in Germany in some ways, as long as it's not Donnie. Looking forward to working together in Berlin next month to promote the role of women in the economy, Ivanka posted on Facebook late Sunday evening. Well, that's all fine and dandy. The article goes on just to give the facts. Where she's going to be. She's going to get a security clearance and, essentially the function of the First Lady.
There you go.
But she won't be a government employee, won't be raising a salary that we can trace.
Right.
Let's be clear about that. And, of course, the move on all fronts raises ethical or eyebrows in the ethical profession, including her going to this Women's Empowerment Summit. I don't see that as necessarily an issue, but I don't know. Does she? I guess she can empower women. I guess. Well, Tony Robbins is a motivational speaker, and I think he was like an orphan. I think anybody can be what they want, and it's good because we are Americans. All right, this is by Travis Geddes out of Raw Story. Motivational speaker Tony Robbins has known Donald Trump for decades, and he's not optimistic that Donald will grow into the office. Robbins, who is promoting his new investment guide Unbreakable, told the Daily Beast that Trump's confidence was fragile because his self-image was largely based on what other people think about him. His entire life is you win or you're nobody, Robbins said. You've seen and known. Even if people don't like you, though he prefer to be liked, people will know who you are and respect you. That mentality is a 40s, 50s subset. And then some people have that he is brought up with. Okay, I see. Because he was brought up in that era, right? The 40s and 50s mindset. How other people perceive you determines, your prestige in society. So let's see, that level of obsession that he has about the media coverage he gets. If you go into his offices, he's got a room stacked with magazines of everything he's done. He puts this, I guess this is another aspect that offends me. Now, of course, I'm not necessarily adverse or exempt from the idea of self-promoting. I mean, the whole idea behind being a punk rocker is that, we were distributing our own stuff. We were making it ourselves. We weren't doing it under the auspices of the label telling us what, when, and how to do it, right? So the idea of that, or even like, getting your stuff published. I found out from trial and error that maybe it's a pretty good idea to go to the social mixers that you've been invited to, so that publishers and agents can put a face to the paper, right? It's okay. And I have to say, what little I did end up getting published came about because of social mixers, but also performances in public of my work, whatever, or other aspects, and people weren't interested. So the idea of self-promotion, I'm not necessarily adverse to. But the idea that I would, frame, like some poem I published in a chapbook. I mean, come on. I mean, that just, or pictures of yourself. I guess, I don't know, maybe I'd put up the first dollar I made in my restaurant business. You frame that, right? But I don't know, the narcissism of Trump and his offices being these edifices all to him. And of course, he's got his name outside on his buildings. Okay. Robbins, who gave Trump his first taste of speaking before a large crowd about 20 years ago, said he was almost sympathetic toward the president's personal vulnerability. So Robbins is responsible for, oh my God, Tony. Tony says, I know it sounds absurd, but I feel for the guy in that moment. His entire identity can disappear if enough people are upset with him. I hope that he'll eventually adjust to a CEO mentality and be in a position where he wants to succeed so badly that he'll do something that's worthwhile. We'll see. Robbins, who at 6'7" is larger than his own bodyguards, explained that Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are obsessed with cultivating a phony identity as tough guys. They're fake alphas, Robbins said. It's a weird thing. They're an alpha until they get punched in the face, or an alpha until someone takes out their legs. I meet people all the time that you can tell is fake confidence, but people these days have a huge bullshit meter because even reality television is bullshit. Meaning people put up with a lot of bullshit because they're a nerd to it. So people probably don't see that these fake tough guys are really fake tough guys. All right, let's get to our Jim Hightower break. New one, of course, is the beginning of the week. We'll come back, go through the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Co's community calendar, and then the stories on the last half. You're listening to the After Show on Netroots Radio with Week of Justice, and we will be right back.
You know what our country needs right now? I think we need something that can bring us together again, something that can heal the raw wound of deep political division imperiling our society. And guess what? One company has come out with just the balm America needs, an ad for a luxury automobile. Seriously? Yes, the cultural bridge builders at Cadillac have produced an advertising campaign intended not only to sell its pricey cars, but also to heal America's social divide. How? By reminding TV audiences about everyone's desire to achieve the American dream, as symbolized, of course, by the status symbol of owning a Cadillac. Seriously? Yes. The ad begins with a stark declaration. We are a nation divided. That's what they tell us. Then Cadillac's ad suddenly shifts gears, gliding into an uplifting, touchy-feely montage of all in this together inclusiveness. We carry each other forward, the narrator purrs, no matter who we are or what we believe. Mustering all of the modesty you would expect from a Cadillac executive, the corporation's marketing head explains that we didn't want to enter the political debate, we wanted to transcend it. Ah, yes, and how better to go beyond rancorous political disharmony than to drive away from it in a luxury car. This is Jim Hightower saying the corporate honchos tried out this message on an unbiased audience of Texas Cadillac dealers. And guess what? They loved it. One dealer gushed that the ad identifies the ultra-expensive car with, quote, unity, optimism, courage. Seriously? Yes, apparently Cadillac thinks the right and left, the rich and poor, can all become e pluribus unum again by unifying around America's new egalitarian slogan, a $100,000 car in every garage.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Okay, we're back.
And indeed, we are back, and thank you for sticking with us. This is the After Show with Wink and Justice. Justice here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the West Coast. Wink is in upstate New York, 21 on the East Coast. Our crew are the ethereal creatures who reside in the cloud, whose advanced intergalactic technical abilities allow Netroots Radio. And this, by extension, the After Show to span the globe, the solar system, out past the Oort cloud, out past that bridge of stars, connecting those two galaxies just a mere million light years away.
Yeah.
And beyond. Yeah. Think it and it will be true. That's what we're learning in today's new Agogo society.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay, come on. Put on a bad hair piece and call it a comb over and you're fine. I got to tell you, somebody's got to do something about that comb over. It's looking worse and worse.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really putting on the product, and you can still see the bobby pins.
Right.
They think that the product will slick it back and stay in place, but they still got to put bobby pins in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you imagine what it looks like up close? Yee.
Yeah.
And everybody's afraid to say anything. Why?
I don't know. Needs
No
to
wonder
work.
he doesn't like kids.
Right.
The first thing the kids say, "Mommy, why is that guy wearing bobby pins in his hair?" Get this kid away from me. Okay, today's Connect, Unite, Act Daily Co's Community Diary. is facilitated as it is every Monday by Shaitan Kev. And his question actually is a very serious one, and it is, do you volunteer? I will confess that I'm still getting up to speed here in Southern Oregon, though I wouldn't say it's an organized way of volunteering, but we do I go to the community center and, purchase things, that kind of stuff. Go to, the various events that are raising money for, we do have a Meals on Wheels program here that it's quite stunning how, it even impacts that pantry here. So we're, going to attend a little benefit dinner to pack the pantry, right? So, but when I was in the Bay Area, I volunteered every holiday at Glide Memorial to cook and serve for the holidays. And I worked for Project Open Hand, which was a local, more than just a Meals on Wheels. It was very much of an outreach situation that originally arose out of the AIDS crisis. And of course, the attendant volunteering in various political campaigns. But more, I think what Shaitan Kev is getting at is more, do you volunteer?
Yeah, locally,
like in your community? So I haven't quite, as I confess, gotten up to speed to actually do volunteer work here. But I like to think that, by supporting it in a financial way. And a physical presence, is one way of alleviating my guilt.
There you go.
There, if we're in confessional, we might as well confess it. All right. So, events currently scheduled and groups forming. Wisconsin Cossacks are forming their group. So, Cosmail Chris the Colladem, if you'd like to be part of Wisconsin Co's. And the New England Cossacks are going to have a meetup on Saturday, April 22nd at noon at Flatbread Pizza in Portland, Maine. Cosmail NHawks 42 to RSVP for a seat. Navajo will be in New York City on Sunday, April 23rd, and they're going to meet up at Spitzer's Corner, New York City Cossacks, by the way, at 101 Rivington Street in the Ludlow District. The cross street is Ludlow, coincidentally. They're going to be meeting at high noon, so Cosmail Navajo to RSVP for that. Thinking Fella and Ojibwa have been organizing the 3rd Epic Glacier National Park meetup, held on June 30th through July 2nd, and important planning details can be had in a diary at a link at the Connect Unite Act Community Diary, so please go to that. Also, might be wise to Cosmail, Thinking Felon, and Ojibwa, and they will point you in the correct direction as well. The Netroots Nation Daily Coast annual Cheers and Jeers dinner, put together by Bill in Portland, Maine, with some, a little bit of help from Navajo too. But that is, I don't know, it's our, what is it, Wink? It's like a roast. It's a red carpet event. It's quite fun. But that will be, that dinner will be occurring Wednesday, August 9th at 5:30 p.m., of course, in Atlanta, Georgia, where Netroots Nation will be occurring this year. The actual location will be determined when you Cosmail Navajo to RSVP, and that will, of course, determine the size of the venue. And that is your Connect Unite Act Daily Coast Community Calendar for the 27th of March of 2017. And, I don't know. I don't mean to be so vain, but I turned 62 yesterday. So.
Yes. Belated happy birthday.
I'm sorry if you thought I was an eligible spring chicken. I'm really kind of like, I don't know, what are those long leghorn rooster eyes, I'm a capon. I'm a big capon now, buddy.
Yeah.
Strutting around. Oh, boy. I got to tell you, except for, my ankle and my right leg, both my knees, and my shoulder aching all the time, I'm in pretty damn good health.
There you go. Yep.
Strong. Kidneys are all there. Liver's working pretty damn good.
That's the main thing.
Respiration is right up there. It's just that it's harder to get cardiovascular in because of these, stupid leg injuries that I acquired because of why? Yeah. football. Don't
Yeah.
do it, kids. Do something else. It's not just your head sloshing or your brain sloshing
Right.
around in your head. Sometimes they take out your knees too. Ouch.
Soccer
Oh.
probably safer.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
maybe
know.
not. Maybe
I
not.
mean, there's a lot of. I will admit that when I was in Europe, which is of course a soccer centric
yeah. Oh, yeah.
society in many ways across governments, you don't really see the lifelong knee injuries that you see from guys that even played high school football.
Right.
So,
Right.
let alone when they made it to the pros. Those guys are like in walkers or they're getting wheeled around.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't see that from people who played soccer from the time they're little kids and then
Right.
maybe into college, but certainly in high school or whatnot.
Yep.
Every place I went, when I would put on these music festivals, and sometimes they'd be, I'm sorry, they'd be on these big palatial estates, right? And it was really kind of like a big party, and several hundred people from the community would be invited, and there would always be like a community soccer game. Every wedding party I went to, they'd have a soccer game, right?
Yeah. Heck yeah.
And the old guys are out there playing soccer, and I'm like, I'm not getting out there on that field. Look at those clumps of grass. I'm going to hit an edge of that, and I'm going to sprain my knee. Get out of here. So I'm just saying, maybe football isn't a good idea.
Right.
Soccer, you would think you would have some knee problems, but I didn't see evidence of it long term.
Right.
And they certainly, I would think more people play soccer,
Oh yeah. Easy. Yeah. Yep.
than played football.
Yep.
So I don't know. 2 and 2 equals 4, doesn't it?
Right. Right.
Okay. I better get on these here. This next article is out of Think Progress by Alan Pike. Trump's bumped up Pentagon budget means a gold rush for defense contractors. Man, wink. Remember in the Bush years when those dude bros in Florida got together and decided they were going to be defense contractors and started like an online thing to, and they were just like a couple of kids in an apartment, and they got a contract to like supply weaponry and stuff, and they did it surreptitiously. I mean, they got caught, right? But I don't know. Maybe we can get in on this gravy train. We got to figure a way out. What could we supply the military?
There's got to be something we can, send to the military. That's for sure.
I don't know. We could, I don't know. Netroots radio bumper stickers. Maybe each one of those is like $20,000 a piece.
Yep. Yep.
We'll see. Okay, President Trump's, and I hate saying that name, President, but okay. First budget erases scores of domestic spending programs and inflicts steep cuts on most others, dramatically accelerating a years-long downward trend in how much America invests in its own people. Well, we're afterthoughts, aren't we? The administration justifies canceling programs that heat very poor people's homes through the winter and ensure that people don't go hungry by saying they haven't delivered strong enough results to justify their relatively low cost. Wow. You feed an old person on Friday night, by Saturday morning, he's hungry again. What kind of success is that? Cut the program.
Exactly.
I don't get it. How do people think like this? I feed an old person on Friday night. By Saturday morning, he's hungry again. And that's the metric in which you determine whether a food program is appropriate for the elderly and infirmed. Okay.
Right.
But while Trump's plan to slash the butter portion of federal spending, it throws a large new pile of money at the guns part. Trump's proposed 9% increase in defense. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because 9%. Yikes! It's sort of like when you owe Deutsche Bank $300 million, and you go, "I'm just going to counter with a 300, but I'll put a B on it, billion." See how they go for that. And then if we negotiate down and come somewhere towards my 300 million, or how about this? They say I don't owe anything. And we might get $300 billion out of the deal. These people. 9% increase, Wink. Doesn't just rank with the largest one-year jumps in Pentagon funding. Reagan threw double-digit budget hikes at the agency more than once, for example. But Trump's $54 billion increase sits, in percentage terms, on par with George W. Bush's global war on terror budgets from the early 2000s, where he got carte blanche, Wink. And then people go, it feels like this guy's taking advantage of September 11th. People go, other people went, you know what? It sure does feel like that.
Yeah.
Well, the floodgates were open following the September 11th attacks, ended up getting taxpayers fleeced by a long list of unscrupulous war profiteers. I'm still wondering how many billions of dollars was it on pallets again, Wink? In cash? I mean, you could see it in satellite photos from outer space. Where'd that go?
Yeah, there were several.
Or like the contractors who built these showers that electrocuted troops while they were like cleaning up.
Right.
Those
pallets were like $1 billion each or something. I mean, there was a lot of cash on them. $100 bills.
But I'm also talking about the war profiteers who made faulty products and constructions that actually killed troops.
Right.
And what happened to them? Well, one of them's named Eric Prince, and he's a senior advisor for Donald Trump now.
Oh, hell yeah.
Happens to be the brother of Betsy DeVos, too. But, who's counting? Today, Trump is counting on Office of Management and Budget Director Mike Mulvaney to prevent his big military budget from becoming cash carrion for the next generation of vultures. Mulvaney cut his teeth as a spending hawk, particularly wary of Pentagon numbers, as the Huffington Post's Zach Carter notes, but is now caping for a budget that dumps a lot more money into some of the very programs he built a reputation criticizing. Isn't that interesting? Budget cutter now in there. Well, who knows how to blow up a budget more than a budget cutter, Wink, when you got him on your team, right?
Right.
To maintain his credibility and demonstrate that Trump's new hard power defense priorities weren't just an excuse to throw money away, Mulvaney needs to sniff out wasteful endeavors. He appears to have missed at least one. The example in question, highlighted in a letter to Defense Secretary James Mattis from Representative Ro Khanna last week, is a company called Transdigm Group, or Digim. The word company implies an organization that creates things of value that would not otherwise exist and finds a way to sell them for more than they cost to produce. This is what I'm trying to figure out we could do, Wink. This is how to make it big.
Heck yeah.
Damn. We think that we have to give like equal pay for equal services instead of finding a pet rock.
Right.
And selling it to the Defense Department.
That's all. Yep.
We got to find a pet rock. Come on.
Magic rock or something, yeah.
I'm tired. Okay, the kind that looted Bush's war budgets for tens of millions in profits before most Americans had ever heard of the name Barack Obama. Yep. The company doesn't manufacture parts that the Pentagon needs for drones, ships, weapons, or ground vehicles. It finds companies that do. They're middlemen.
Can't beat it.
My first job in the oil business was working for a employment contractor who would, collect a certain amount per hour per employee. And you would start off making a quarter of what they paid the company. And then as you worked your way up, you were trying to get to half, so if they were paying this subcontractor, what, $16 an hour, you were hoping to get to $8.
Right.
But if you got hired by the company, then, you cut out the middleman, and then you'd also get insurance and a pension and all the other perks of getting on to the company. So it felt kind of like a farm team in a way, too, right? And this is what we have to figure out to do, Wink.
Right.
Who makes bullets that the government needs, right? Maybe some little bullet maker in backwater white nationalist Idaho. Maybe we can get him a government contract and we'll take a cut of his profits. I hate the idea that I'm giving some Richard Spencer white nationalist an idea right now.
Right.
But I don't need to. This is how this works. So, yeah, I guess Mulvaney hasn't figured out how to cut out the middleman, apparently. And here's a big example of these people. Transdigim's weird little empire. And they parse it down, actually. You know, you need a specialized aviation tap, but you need 10,000 of them. But there's no company that carries 10,000 specialized aviation taps to make a thread, right? So what this company does is it consolidates all of these various tap makers and tries to find inventory in which then to have a supply chain. But according to this article, they're a little bit fast and loose in how they acquire the contracts and how they invoice to make their money. So they apparently overcharge the people to sign on for their services, you know, the tap maker. But then they also overcharge the government at the other end. And isn't that how it works, Wink? I mean, that's how you get, what, $76,000 gold toilet seats? Gold-plated toilet seats? Right. You don't want to sit on solid gold. It's a little too pliable. It can only be plated. Just, there you go. I mean, from personal experience. Just, there you go. It warms up too quick. You don't want to do it. So, yeah, Mulvaney. Yeah, he's a budget cutter. Indeed. But, you know, he's also a team player. And when it's party over country, this is what we get. Okay, I better get through this one. This is through the History News Network by a professor emeritus of history at Lycoming College, Richard J. Morris. Donald Trump ran on a campaign to make America great again, and in that vein, during a recent visit to the Hermitage, Andrew Jackson's home, Mr. Trump said he sees Jackson as a reflection of himself. The latter point is not surprising, since the current president had previously hung a portrait of Old Hickory in the Oval Office. There had been several apt comparisons of the two men, but most have missed an important point. Both men won the presidency in part through racist rhetoric and actions, the most egregious of which were directed toward indigenous Americans and African Americans. Daniel Walker Howell's Pulitzer Prize-winning What Hath God Wrought demonstrated that Jackson won the election because of votes in the South and the West, where his support for slavery attracted Southern planters and his advocacy of Indian removal appealed to Western farmers. Similarly, Trump's call for a wall on the Mexican border and his acceptance of endorsements from racists like David Duke played to the prejudices and interests of certain circles in white America. The similarities between Jackson's Indian removal and Trump's proposed wall and ill-defined deportation plans are particularly noteworthy and beg some comparisons. One might challenge the existence of parallels here by asserting that Mexicans are Latinos, not Native Americans. But the vast majority of Mexicans have indigenous American ancestors. According to the CIA World Factbook, 90% of Mexico's population has Native American blood, 62% are mestizo, having an indeterminate amount of native blood, 21% are predominantly Amerindian, 7% are entirely Native Americans, and 10% are classified as other, most of whom are of European ancestry. Okay. While the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs leaves the issuance of Indian cards to the tribes, 90% of Mexicans would probably qualify here based simply on their bloodlines. Now, I would also say that vast amounts of the West and Southwest used to be Mexico. And so you might say that just by naturalized citizenship that was usurped by conquest, those could be indigenous people too, might they? And what the good professor is getting across here is that in the same way that Jackson stopped migrations of Western Indian tribes and peoples that had been occurring for thousands of years, meaning that they were nomadic and they moved up and down the coast for sustenance, to congregate amongst themselves in great bands, great gatherings, right, on a regular basis, monthly. Okay, that had to be put to a stop right around 1848 when gold was discovered.
Yeah.
And those migrations stopped, and there were bounties put on passive Indians. The California Indians in particular weren't ever particularly warlike. They need be because they had such great resources. They didn't need to kill over it. They were more willing to share. The killing happened when Europeans came into being, and they didn't want to share. And Jackson made sure that happened. And so the migrations of people coming for work from amorphous boundaries that in their cultural memory seem rather recent is the same sort of activity, according to the good professor, that Jackson did. So I actually ascribe to that because landscape and politics are very complex, much more complicated than everyone ever thought. Okay. All right, let's get out of here. We got Hartman coming up about 6 minutes after the hour. I have here the Shaolin Afronauts quest under Capricorn to fill that interlude period, and then Randy Rhodes later on. Boy, she'll give a recap on what happened. Oh, what? I'll just leave you with this. A senior Trump advisor by the name of Boris Epstein has been summarily dismissed from the Trump campaign or the Trump team. Speculation is that he, as a spokesperson, is so caustic in the green room that people just can't stand it. But I've never heard of that being a reason why Trump would get rid of somebody. There's other scuttlebutt that he might actually be Putin's man in the White House. In other words, Boris Epstein might be, as a Russian national, a spy.
There you go.
That could be the big news, or it could just be a bunch of BS. I don't know. But stay tuned to Netroots Radio because it's going to be coming up. Trust me. All right. We'll see you here bright and bushy tomorrow. Same time, same station. In fact, listen to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365. Why? Because who loves you, baby? Okay, Wink. I'll see you on the other side.
All right. Bro.